What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes for the Locked On Podcast Network. I am your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Thursday, March 11th in the year 2021. Yesterday, the Big Ten Conference Tournament tipped off, and tonight, your Buckeyes take the court in the Big Ten Conference Tournament for the first time. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at JStevens07. You can also follow the podcast on Twitter as well at Locked On Buckeye. Lineup for today. In segment 2, we're going to talk about what stuck out in Chris Holtman's media availability on Wednesday. Segment 3, we're going to talk about 3 keys or things that need to be at the forefront of each player's minds during today's game. But we begin today's show talking about what takes place for the Buckeyes tonight, Ohio State, as they tip off and they play their first game in the Big Ten Conference Tournament. All year long. You start league play. There was a short, very, very short, maybe 4 or 5 game, maybe 6 game, non-conference or non-league schedule. And then you start league play. And it didn't take very long to realize that this league play, the games that were going to be played that from Ohio State, no matter if it was Minnesota, no matter if it was Northwestern, no matter if it was Iowa, Illinois, or the team up north, you had to bring your A game every single game. I remember I was on Locked On Big Ten with Big Ten Ben Stevens prior to us being on consistently every Monday, and he asked me if Ohio State, I think it was the first time Ohio State played Iowa, I believe he said if Ohio State wins this game, do they have a chance to win the Big Ten regular season title? I said yes. That was before the 4-game losing streak. That was before the lack of focus late in games, you may want to say. That was before the poor performance against Iowa. That was before whatever happened against Michigan State. That was before all of that. I said, yes, they have a chance to win the Big Ten regular season title. That ultimately went to the team up north. I know the Fighting Illini, they are a little upset. They want to raise a banner even though they didn't win the outright regular season title. They're trying to do things to, well, take a title that is not theirs. Regular season's over. This is the first of 2 postseason tournaments that are huge, that hold a lot of weight. Even though Ohio State is already going to play in the Big Dance, in the NCAA tournament, that does not mean they can not show up in this game tonight. That does not mean they can just go ahead and fall over or flop or just try to coast through these games and hope they win. And if they don't win a game, if they win one game, lose the second game against Purdue, it's okay because we're already in. That is not an option. That wasn't an option before the 4-game losing streak, but based on what we just watched, the final 4 games of the season, it really goes prior to that. They're winning some games in it, and you could tell they weren't playing their best basketball. Ohio State knows tonight, today, this afternoon, they know that this means a lot. This holds a lot of weight. They want to win a Big Ten Conference Championship. They didn't win the Big Ten regular season title. They want to win a Big Ten Conference Championship. They want to be able to hold up the trophy in Lucas Oil Stadium. They want to be able to cheer in front of Buckeye fans for the first time all year as they play hard basketball, as they compete, as guys like Liddell, Jr., Walker, Towns. I do say Towns for a reason. We're going to talk about him here in a second. Towns. Who else is there? Justice Suing. Musa Jallo will be a bigger factor. Justin Orange. Get that stroke going, baby. Get it going consistently. They know they need this game. Game number 1 for them. Game in the game number 2 in the second round on Thursday in this tournament. They need every second. They need to bounce back. They need to mentally know they can do this. They need to really build confidence in themselves once again. Knowing you can do it and not doing it as 2 separate things. Everybody knows Ohio State can do a lot of good on the basketball court, and they can be just about anybody in the country. They got to show it. They got to prove it. And this tournament is where it happens. I am excited, guys. I am thoroughly excited to watch the basketball today and the Big Ten Conference Tournament. Will the Buckeyes play Purdue on Friday? That's to be determined. Do I think they have a really good shot to play Purdue? Absolutely. But you have to take care of business today. If you don't take care of business today, you can kiss the possible Purdue matchup goodbye. You can kiss the Big Ten Conference Tournament Championship, lifting that trophy. You can kiss those chances goodbye. And you will have a lot more on your plate. 1, more practice time, but 2, trying to figure out what in the world is going on with your team. A possible 1 seed falling to the 2 seed line. Now, I did see Andy Katz bracket. That's not the official bracket, but I did see Andy Katz had Ohio State most recently in the number 2 seed in the same bracket as Gonzaga. That's one of the teams I do not want the Buckeyes to play. Yes, I say I, or you maybe it will be the same way. There are a few teams out there, I'd say a few, just you can count them on one hand, that you will say Ohio State in the tournament, you don't want to see that team at all. Gonzaga is one of them. Yeah, they had a slight scare against BYU, a little bit, but Gonzaga's really good. They're undefeated for a reason. They won not just the regular season title in the WCC, the conference title in the WCC. Go back to their non-conference. You can say, Jay, they play in a weak conference. Go look at their non-conference schedule. You will see ranked opponent, the Zags won. Ranked opponent, the Zags won. Ranked opponent, the Zags won. They were consistent, the Buckeyes, in their non-league play. They were consistent in wins as well. League play started to falter, started to go the opposite way. Get your mind right. Stay focused. The Big Ten Conference Tournament is not just a time for you to win a trophy, but a time for you to build confidence as well. Let's take a break very quickly. When we come back, we'll talk about some things that stuck out in Chris Holtman's availability to the media on Wednesday. I almost said Thursday. Thursday's today. On Wednesday. But first, check this out. RockAuto.com is a family business serving auto parts customers online for 20 years. Go to RockAuto.com to shop for auto and body parts for hundreds of manufacturers. They have everything from engine control modules and brake parts to tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Whether it's for your classic or daily driver, get everything you need in a few easy clicks delivered directly to your door. The RockAuto.com catalog is unique and remarkably easy to navigate. Quickly see all the parts available for your vehicle and choose brands, specifications, and prices you prefer. Best of all, prices at rockauto.com are always reliably low and the same for professionals and do-it-yourselfers. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. RockAuto.com. This episode is sponsored by Blue Chew. Blue Chew is making waves and bringing more confidence to the bedroom. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. Blue Chew's tablets combat all forms of ED and can help men gain extra confidence for when it's time to perform. Blue Chew is an online prescription service, so no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy, and it ships right to your door in a discreet package. So if you could benefit from extra confidence when it's time to perform, visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code Locked On at checkout. Just $5 shipping. Just pay $5 shipping. That's bluechew.com. Bluechew.com and use promo code Locked On. That is LOCKEDON to receive your first month free. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast. 2020 is mercifully over. It's time for a fresh start and a few more wins. If you're betting this year and want more wins, listen to Locked On Bets with your boy Q and Lee Sterling of Paramount Sports. They are picking college basketball, football, and NBA locks all winter long. Subscribe to Locked On Bets wherever you get your podcasts. If this is your first time listening or watching Locked On Buckeyes, I want to say welcome. If this is your first time in a long time listening or watching the podcast, I want to say welcome back. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Buckeyes wherever you're listening or watching the podcast right now so you don't miss a beat. Locked On Buckeyes drops a fresh new episode to you and for you every Monday through Friday. Chris Holtman has a lot on his plate right now. Imagine thinking about what Ohio State has gone through this year and then think about what Ohio State is about to go through in a gauntlet, a Thursday, possible Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday games, 4 games in 4 days to win the Big Ten Conference Tournament, and then going into what is the madness, March Madness, where you're playing a game, 1 day off, a game. Oh, let's move on. A game, 1 day off, let's move on. Oh, Final Four, let's move on. A game, 1 day off, and then a game. The preparation for this game, for last night's game, for this game today, because you don't know if you're playing Minnesota, you don't know if you're playing Penn State. You're not sure which team you are playing. You're not sure who is going to be the winner of the matchup. So your preparation for that game, today's game, is huge because do you prepare too much for one? Do you prepare just a little bit for each? Not enough? How do you properly go about deciding how you're going to prepare for these games? And as I was listening to Chris Holtman and his media availability on Wednesday, seems like he has his head on straight. He knows what he's doing. He is a leader of this team, and I thoroughly believe that Chris Holtman will lead this team in the ways that they need to go. Chris Holtman stated, quote, "Everybody's in a good place," unquote. Quote, "The Buckeyes, quote, are ready to move on," unquote. End quote. Excuse me. Got a lot of things on my mind, and I keep saying instead of end. That was one of the opening quotes. Quote, everybody's in a good place, end quote. And then also, quote, "ready to move forward," end quote. Those are 2 quotes that came from Chris Holtman at the top. I mean, literally within like the first 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes of his media availability. First question, he went I forget who asked the question, but they wanted to be right up front and say, what are your mentals like? How are you guys prepared? How are you guys mentally going to go into Thursday's game? And Chris Holtman said, we're in a good place, baby. We're in a good place. Now, we're going to see if they're in a good place. But coming from the head man, I don't believe Chris Holtman would falsify that type of statement going into a tournament that holds so much weight, not just for the teams that are trying to punch their ticket to go to the big dance, but for teams like Ohio State that need to build all the confidence going into the NCAA tournament. Chris Holtman did pinpoint some injuries, and I think these are key for you to know about because there are some starters. There's 2 starters that Chris Holtman did mention. One, Kyle Young. We all know he can't practice consistently due to some injuries that he has. We all know he suffered the concussion against the team up north. Chris Holtman said Kyle Young feels good. Seth Towns, with his recovering from his knee injury, he is currently just managing. What does that mean? That's up for your own interpretation. But he did say Seth Towns is only just managing. He also added about Seth Towns, not in the injury discussion, but he did add that Seth Towns is doing some good things right now. Seth Towns, his minutes and his roles, his minutes have kind of diminished. Defensively, he has to pick it up, but he does do some good things for the Buckeyes offensively that can be a big threat for them in this tournament. Another injury he pinpointed, Musa Jallow said his ankle is getting better. And then he also mentioned Musa after Justice suing. He said Justice can't practice right now. He recently had a procedure. He did not say he would not play today. He just mentioned that Justice suing recently had a procedure, and via the procedure, he cannot practice right now. Losing Justice suing would be a tough loss, a big blow. It is something that no matter how the bad times have looked, Justice suing is going to, I believe, have his mind right and go into these games knowing one fumble of a ball, one behind the back pass that was ill-advised, that wasn't wise at all, one shot that shouldn't be taken because I have a cutter that's going to the lane. The mistakes, the decisions we make, Justice suing knows if he gets this right now, it could be his team moving on, not just from one game to the next game, and ultimately having the possibility to lift not just one trophy at the end of the season, but two. Chris Holtman, I think this was a question from Adam Jardy of the Columbus Dispatch. He asked a question about Ohio State not being at the free throw line as much as they had been. And I think Chris Holtman noticed the question, and I noticed it is not just his body language, but as he went about answering the question, he was a lot more detailed with this answer than he was with other questions that were asked to him. And I think that was a very key thing Chris Holtman probably knows about, and he's probably put deep thought to the free throw line or the lack of appearances or lack of shots from the charity stripe. He did say this one thing, quote, the Buckeyes need to, quote, be more intentional, end quote. You've watched basketball games and you've watched this Buckeye team play basketball. At times they're a little passive, at times they're not aggressive, at times they're not being the aggressor, not just as far as driving to the paint, but as far as the pace, the tempo, dictating what the other team does. There are times that they are not that team, and ultimately it hinders them. Ultimately, it's not for the betterment of the team when they play that way. And I do believe, because I noticed Chris Holtman when he was asking about that, one, he said they got to get back there. But when he's saying you got to be more intentional, there are a lot of minor details that go into being more intentional when getting back to the free throw line. Chris Holtman also stated one quick thing. I mentioned it earlier, but preparing for both teams, it's a little bit difficult. But they're doing it right now. Do you prepare for one and not prepare for the other? You heard myself and Big Ten Ben Stevens. Liam Robbins is going to not play. He didn't not play on Wednesday. Will he play Thursday? That's to be determined if Minnesota wins. This is being recorded prior to Minnesota taking the court and the Big Ten Conference Tournament being tipped off. So I am not sure if Liam Robbins and what his status will be for today's game. I also don't know the matchup or who won the game. This is being recorded, like I said, before that game has been tipped off. Chris Holtman, Ohio State. Can they win? Yes. Are they mentally prepared? We'll see. For him to say that Ohio State is in a good place, that's okay with me. Let's go ahead and step away really quickly. When we come back, I got a few keys for us for today's game for how Ohio State should not only approach the first game in the Big Ten Conference Tournament, but every game in this tournament. But first, check this out. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Football might be over, but NBA, college basketball, and even the NHL are in full swing. BetOnline even covers awards, TV shows, and reality TV. Real-time updated odds and props on almost anything you can imagine. BetOnline has you covered for all the news, scores, and odds. It's the best way to place your bets, and it's even free to sign up. Head to betonline.ag on your computer or your mobile device, and make sure you use promo code LOCKEDON to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Once again, that is betonline.ag. Go there on your computer or your mobile device, and when you sign up, make sure you use promo code Locked On. That is LOCKEDON to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, your online sports book experts. This year, the Locked On Podcast Network will be live on Selection Sunday, March 14th, reacting to who's in and who's out of the NCAA tournament. Big Ten Ben Stevens and Josh Neighbors host Selection Sunday Live with local experts from around the Locked On College Network of podcasts. Follow at Locked On Live on YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook today, and watch our live Selection Sunday special on March 14th. Normally, I don't close out a show or I don't mention guests on the Jay Stevens podcast, but I thoroughly think you will enjoy today's guest on the Jay Stevens podcast, the other podcast that I host. I had the privilege of interviewing Charlie Ward, former Heisman Trophy winner, former NBA vet as well, 11-year NBA vet. Him and I had a fun, about 24-minute interview conversation, a lot of information, a lot of insight. Go there and check that out and learn more about a college football legend and a man that Knicks fans will never forget played for them. Keys to not just the game today, but the conference tournament as well. When I think of a tournament, when I think about how this team has lost 4 in a row, the first word that comes to my mind starts with an F when thinking about keys to the game or the tournament, and it's not the word for. No, I'm trying to forget about that atrocious, embarrassing losing streak. I won't say embarrassing. They played some good basketball teams. Michigan State played better. He didn't really play well against Iowa. Not at all. That wasn't good basketball. That wasn't how Ohio State plays. But the first word that comes to my mind is focus. Think about the last 4 minutes, let's go 3.5 minutes. Chris Holtman mentioned that 3.5 mark in the press conference, in the media availability. There was a focus there in like that 7.5 or 7:45 minute mark to the 3.5 minute mark. I think it was actually 3:58 or 3:57 when Brad Underwood called that timeout after an E.J. Liddell 3. You could tell all of a sudden via a matchup, the focus of Ohio State slightly wasn't there. Ohio State, if they focus in this game, playing their game, being the team that they can be, they'll be fine. They'll be just fine. They're a team that still, and many people around college basketball know, a 4-game losing streak or losing streaks happen. Now, this one is magnified because it's happening at the end of the year, not the beginning of the year. Think about this losing streak happened in January. Middle of January, you lose 4 games in a row, your first 4 games in a Big Ten conference schedule or league play. Okay, cool. Yeah, you know about it. That has something. But that's not how you're going to be viewing the team going into the conference tournament. They're going to be going on a 4-game winning streak, beating teams like the team up north in Illinois and Iowa and Michigan State. That would mean a whole lot more than a 4-game losing streak at the beginning of the season. Let's go back a couple of years ago. If Ohio State lost to Virginia Tech early in the year, late in the year, that's a whole lot different than them losing to Virginia Tech early in the year in the college football season. Less games at the beginning of it's just human nature. You lose early, people tend to forget about that because what happens late is what happens last is what is at the front of our mind. Focus. Every time you're on the court, focus. Every time you're in a timeout, focus. If the player is struggling and he comes to the bench, he gets taken out, focus. Keep his head up. Focus. Stay engaged, mentally and physically engaged the entire time. If you remember when Brandon Simberg and I were on the show, on the podcast, I believe it was the day before Ohio State played Illinois, I hinted and talked about how Illinois' energy against the team up north, that was the energy from a bench that I loved. And you heard some of it a little bit when Illinois shot a 3. It was, ooh, you can hear that thing good, baby. Just saying, man, those are the things that get me going. And he pinpointed how he liked Ohio State's energy in the first matchup when Ohio State went to Champaign, Illinois, and beat the Fighting Illini. Focus. I mentioned another one earlier. I'll say it again now. Stay engaged. This is one here that's not just physical. It's a lot of mental. You can be physically engaged the entire time, but mentally you could be elsewhere. Your mind could be elsewhere. Your mind could be with your family, your class, your girlfriend, your kids. If some of the players have kids, your mind could be in so many places. Life after playing at Ohio State. What you're going to do the very next day? If we win, how am I going to recover? Stay mentally engaged the entire time. And last but not least, this is not going to be very crazy. We have tweeted this out. I say we because I'm not going to speak for you. Many people have tweeted this out about Ohio State. They don't quit. They're always in it. Doesn't matter who they're playing. They're going to give their all to the final buzzer. If it calls for them going into overtime and some extra minutes of play, they're going to go ahead out there and give their all there as well. They're not going to quit. They're not going to fold in. They're not going to throw in the towel what Rocky Balboa should have done in Rocky. We all remember, if you haven't seen that movie, go ahead and check it out. You'll see Rocky should have thrown in the towel, but he didn't do it. The Buckeyes sometimes haven't really been there at end of games. Not saying they're not giving the effort, but they have said, and they have shown, sometimes mentally, they quit before the final buzzer goes. Think about this. Ohio State, late game situation. Northwestern, remember the first time they played, 71-70 loss. Northwestern came back. I believe it's Northwestern. Yeah, Northwestern came back. Mitchell Kopp had a phenomenal game. I remember that young man that missed some shots early in the first half, made some key shots late for the Wildcats. Ultimately, they did come back. They did come out and win that game. So think about that. Think about this fact here. Ohio State, they don't fold up there. They don't close up shop. They don't give up easy baskets and baskets in transition. They win that game. Think about all the games. Think about what the Buckeye record could be if they quit, if they didn't keep fighting, if they threw in the towel. You and I would have you and I would have a lot more different conversations here on the podcast if the Buckeyes quit. They don't quit. And in this tournament, no matter who you're playing, you can't quit. You want to win not one trophy, but two at the end of the regular season? Don't quit. Play your game. Stay engaged. Stay focused. There's a good chance you'll be lifting up some hardware pretty soon. Thank you guys so much for listening and enjoying and possibly watching Locked On Buckeyes here on Thursday. You guys can always follow me on Twitter at jsteven07. You can also follow the podcast on Twitter as well at Locked On Buckeye. Remember, guys, 5-star reviews. Fill up that review section on Apple with 5-star reviews. Other places you can listen to and enjoy Locked On Buckeyes are Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and even iHeartRadio. Just to name a few places you can subscribe to Locked On Buckeyes so you don't miss a beat. Come back tomorrow. We'll recap today's game. If the Buckeyes win, we'll prepare for Friday's matchup as well.